In a dusty corner of the forgotten garage, the sun peeked through a cracked window and danced upon an object that had gathered a thick layer of dust over the years. It was an old, unassuming PlayStation 2, its cords tangled like forgotten memories of a bygone era. The room smelled faintly of gasoline and stale popcorn, hinting at the countless hours spent in the company of fast cars and fierce competition. I stumbled upon the console while searching for my dad's old tools to fix my bike. My curiosity piqued by the nostalgic sight, I blew off the dust and took a closer look. The disc tray creaked open, revealing a single game, Candyland Racers 2. The vibrant box art, faded with time but still colorful, promised a world of sugary sweetness and speed. It was a game I had never heard of, not even in the heyday of my childhood gaming. "Looks like it's been a while since anyone's played this," I murmured to myself, sliding the disc out of the case and into the console. The game whirred to life, and a cheerful jingle filled the air. The menu popped up, displaying an unusual number of options, 100 racetracks to choose from. It was odd, since I had never known any game to have that many. Most had a handful, maybe 20 tops. "Wow, this is wild," I exclaimed, scrolling through the selection with a mix of excitement and skepticism. Each track had a name that tickled my imagination: Gumdrop Galaxy, Lollipop Labyrinth, and Fudge Factory 500. They sounded more like levels from a platformer than a racing game, but I was intrigued. I decided to start with the first one, Candy Cane Circuit, to get a feel for this peculiar game. The moment I hit start, my skepticism turned to awe. The graphics weren't cutting edge, but they had a charm that reminded me of my early gaming days. The sound of squealing tires and roaring engines was replaced by the cheerful chirps of candy cars zooming around the track. I picked my ride, a cherry red sports car with flaming gumdrop tailpipes, and revved the engine. As the countdown began, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The screen flickered, and for a brief second, I saw something strange. It was like a real racetrack, but instead of asphalt and rubber, the ground was made of sugar crystals, and the sky was a swirl of cotton candy hues. The game was about to begin, and it was unlike any racing experience I had ever had. My gumdrop-studded steering wheel vibrated in my hands as the candy cars lined up at the starting line. The camera zoomed in, and the crowd of anthropomorphic sweets cheered in a cacophony of sugar-coated excitement. The race kicked off, and we were off like a shot, tires squealing on the sticky candy track. I could almost taste the sweetness as we zipped past giant peppermint pylons and under arches of licorice. The AI racers were surprisingly clever, dodging obstacles with ease and using power-ups like candy bombs and sugar spikes that sent opponents spiraling out of control. As I grew more comfortable with the controls, I found myself weaving in and out of traffic, collecting jelly beans and chocolate coins scattered across the track. Each collectible added a temporary boost to my speed, and I used them strategically to gain an edge over my sticky opponents. The Candy Cane Circuit was a whimsical challenge, full of twists and turns that tested my reflexes and driving skills. The sweet scent of victory was within reach, but so were the jaws of defeat, as the track grew increasingly treacherous. I had to navigate through a field of giant gumballs that bounced unpredictably, and avoid falling into pits filled with what looked suspiciously like molten chocolate. The final stretch was a blur of sugar and color as my car and I pushed the limits of our sticky tires. The finish line grew closer, and I could see the glint of the golden trophy waiting for me. With a last burst of speed, I crossed the line, the cheers of the candy crowd echoing in my ears. The game's screen faded, and I was left staring at the TV, heart racing and grinning from ear to ear. This wasn't just any racing game, it was a hidden gem that had been waiting for me in this dusty garage all along. The excitement of discovery filled me with a childlike wonder, and I knew that this was only the beginning of my journey through the vast world of Candyland Racers 2. With 99 more tracks to conquer, I had a feeling that this game was going to be a wild ride. I leaned back in the chair, contemplating which track to tackle next, my thoughts racing faster than my candy car ever could. The adventure had just begun, and I couldn't wait to see what lay ahead in this sugary realm of speed and imagination. I decided to try Lollipop Labyrinth, intrigued by the name and the whimsical artwork depicting a maze of swirling lollipops and candy cane bridges. The game's intro played out, the camera sweeping through a landscape of giant candy structures that looked like they'd been plucked from a child's fantasy. The music was catchy, a bouncy tune that had me tapping my foot along to the beat. The starting lights flashed, and we were off, the candy cars speeding into the heart of the labyrinth. The track was a dizzying array of lollipops and candy corn, twisting and turning in a way that made my head spin. The walls of the labyrinth leaned in, threatening to topple onto the racetrack at any moment. The AI drivers were as relentless as ever, throwing wrenches in my plans with their clever use of power-ups. One particularly nasty opponent dropped a sticky caramel puddle just as I was about to overtake them, and I spun out, narrowly avoiding a collision with a giant gobstopper. My heart pounding, I regained control and set my sights on the lead once more. The track grew more complex, with gravity-defying loops and candy-colored boost pads that shot me into the air. The sugar rush of adrenaline was palpable as I weaved through the confectionery chaos, my eyes darting back and forth to anticipate the next twist or turn. The labyrinth was living up to its name, a sweet and treacherous maze that demanded my full attention and skill. As I approached the final stretch, I saw the cheeky grin of the game's mascot, a giant lollipop with racing stripes, winking at me from the finish line. The crowd of sugar-coated spectators grew louder, their cheers urging me on. This was it, the moment of truth. I floored the accelerator, my cherry car shooting forward like a bullet. The finish line grew closer, and the taste of victory was as sweet as the sugar rush from a mouthful of the real thing. The race was tight, but with a well-timed use of my sugar rush power-up, I managed to slip into first place. The cheers of the candy crowd grew deafening, and as the screen flashed with the words "victory," I couldn't help but let out a whoop of triumph. The feeling of accomplishment was sweeter than any candy I had ever tasted, and it was all thanks to this peculiar game that had been waiting for me in the dust of forgotten memories. The thrill of the race was still coursing through my veins as I sat there, panting slightly from the excitement. I knew that this wasn't just about unlocking new tracks or beating the game. It was about the journey, the thrill of the chase, and the joy of discovery. Each track was a new challenge, a new story to be told in the world of Candyland Racers 2. And with 98 more to conquer, I had a feeling that my adventure was only just beginning. The next track that caught my eye was Jelly Belly Jungle. The cover depicted a wild jungle of gummy trees and fruit-flavored vines, with candy animals peeking out from behind the foliage. But as the game loaded and the intro began, I noticed something off. The once cheerful music had a sinister undertone, and the animals in the background had a hungry look in their sugar-coated eyes. The carts grew grotesque heads, resembling the very creatures that lurked in the shadows of the jungle. The screen flickered again, and this time, the candy world looked less inviting and more disturbing. As the race started, the candy monsters that had once been cute and cheerful transformed into snarling beasts, their teeth sharp and jagged. The track came alive with a will of its own, the candy cane bridges twisting and turning like snakes, trying to throw me off into the abyss below. The jelly beans and chocolate coins were replaced by rotten fruit that slowed my car down, and the power-ups now had a darker edge to them. A once innocent bubblegum bubble turned into a sticky trap that engulfed my opponents, leaving them wriggling in a cocoon of sweet despair. I gripped the controller tighter, my heart racing as the game took a darker turn. The jungle grew thicker, the vines grabbing at my wheels, the animals more menacing with each passing second. I had to stay focused, dodging the monsters and navigating the treacherous terrain. The smell of spoiled candy filled the room, making my stomach churn. Yet, I couldn't look away from the screen, the game's grip on me tightening with every twisted turn. The finish line was in sight, but so were the glowing eyes of the monsters that had been chasing me. The jungle was closing in, and the air grew thick with a sense of foreboding. I pushed my cart to its limits, dodging the lunging candy creatures and the traps they had laid. As I crossed the line, the screen flashed red, and a chilling laughter filled the room, sending a shiver down my spine. The game had taken a sinister twist, and I realized that Candyland Racers 2 had much more to offer than just sweet, nostalgic fun. The garage felt a bit less dusty, a bit more alive, as if the game had brought the nightmares of forgotten childhoods to life. I took a deep breath and wondered what other secrets this game held, and if I had the courage to uncover them. The game saved my progress with an eerie jingle, and I took a moment to collect myself before choosing the next track. Gumdrop Gorge, the screen read, the artwork showing a serene valley of rainbow gumdrops and sparkling rivers of fruit-flavored soda. It looked like a safe haven after the horrors of the Jelly Belly jungle, but I knew better than to trust appearances. As the race began, the peaceful scene transformed into a sticky trap, the rivers of soda turning into rivers of bubblegum, threatening to swallow me whole. The gumdrop hills were no longer welcoming, but rather, they were the breeding grounds for candy spiders that shot sticky webs at my cart. The other racers had changed as well. Their carts now sported the heads of twisted goblins and grinning skulls, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. They didn't just want to win, they wanted to see me fail. The once helpful power-ups had become curses, turning my car into a sluggish mess of goo or sending a swarm of bees after me. The cheerful chirps of the game's intro were replaced with the buzzing of angry insects and the wails of the damned. I had to stay alert, using the power-ups sparingly and only when absolutely necessary. The race grew intense as the Gumdrop Gorge narrowed, the walls closing in, and the sticky ground threatening to swallow my cart. The goblin carts grew more aggressive, bumping and shoving me towards the deadly precipices. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached the final stretch. The sky grew dark, and the rainbow bridge that led to the finish line looked more like a gateway to hell, complete with flaming skulls and candy corn fangs. I took a deep breath, steeled my nerves, and focused on the prize ahead. The candy monsters grew more frenzied, sensing the end of the race. I could see the fear in their eyes, a reflection of the excitement and horror that I felt. I had to push through, to conquer this nightmare and prove that I had what it took to be a Candyland racer. With a final burst of speed, I broke free from their grasp and soared over the gumdrop waterfall. The finish line grew closer, the cheers of the candy spectators morphing into screams of despair. As I crossed the line, the screen flickered, and for a moment, the image of the garage was replaced with the twisted, candy-coated landscape of the game. The monsters reached out to me, their sugar-crusted claws mere inches from my face, before the game abruptly cut to the victory screen. The normal, cheerful music played, but the image was marred by the horrors I had just faced. The game had a dark heart, and I had only begun to unravel its secrets. With trembling hands, I ejected the disc and stared at it, wondering what other twisted realms lay hidden within the cartridge. The overwhelming urge to continue exploring this twisted world of Candyland Racers 2 was tempered by a niggling fear. What would the next track hold? Would it be a return to the bright and cheerful world of sugar and spice, or would it plunge even deeper into the realm of the macabre? With a mix of excitement and trepidation, I slid the disc back into the console and selected Fizzy Falls. The screen loaded, revealing a cascade of cola bottles and mint green rivers. I took a deep breath, gripped the controller tightly, and braced myself for whatever lay ahead. This was no longer just a game. It was a journey through the dark underbelly of imagination, and I was hooked. The race started with a jolting jerk, and my heart skipped a beat as my cart plummeted down a waterfall of fizzy soda. The screen was a blur of minty greens and brown caramel swirls. The once beautiful landscape was now a nightmare of sticky, sugary destruction. The air was thick with the cloying scent of rotten candy, and the music had become a cacophony of discordant notes that grated on my nerves. I could feel the tension building, the game pushing my limits, daring me to keep going. My eyes darted across the screen, searching for any sign of relief from the madness. The track grew more treacherous, with rivers of chocolate syrup that could slow me down to a crawl and cola geezers that shot me into the air without warning. The other racers had become monstrous, their carts now resembling the very nightmares that had once haunted me as a child. Their taunts and cackles grew louder with every failed attempt to overtake them. I couldn't shake the feeling that this game was no longer a simple diversion, but a reflection of some deeper, more disturbing reality. I couldn't take it anymore. The game's grip on me had turned from delightful to oppressive, and I knew I had to break free. With trembling hands, I reached for the power button on the TV, ready to end this madness. But just as my finger hovered over the button, the screen flickered again and a message appeared. Welcome to the final challenge. Only the bravest of racers may pass. I paused, the thrill of the unknown racing through my veins. Could I resist the siren's call of the next track? The last race was titled Molten Mocha Inferno, and the image on the screen was enough to make my stomach churn. A fiery hellhole of chocolate rivers and candy corn stalagmites. The thought of what horrors lay within made me want to run from the room, but something deep inside me screamed to keep going. This was the ultimate test, and if I could conquer this track, I would have faced my fears and emerged a true Candyland racer. With a deep breath, I selected Molten Mocha Inferno and braced myself for the worst. The game world morphed into a fiery landscape, the air thick with the smell of burning sugar and the distant screams of tormented candy souls. The other racers had become demons, their carts now twisted metal chariots pulled by the screaming heads of goblins. The power-ups had transformed into cursed artifacts, capable of unleashing unspeakable horrors upon the unsuspecting player. The race began, and I was immediately bombarded by fireballs from the candy demons, my cart swerving and dodging as the flaming obstacles grew more intense. The track itself was a river of molten chocolate, the heat making the air shimmer and the smell of burnt sugar almost unbearable. The walls of the inferno closed in around me, the pressure mounting as I approached the final stretch. The cheers of the crowd grew distant, replaced by the howling of the wind and the crackling of the flames. My heart raced as the finish line grew closer, the heat from the chocolate river burning my digital tires. The demonic racers closed in, their eyes gleaming with a hunger for victory. With one final push, I shot through the flaming arch and across the line, the game's screen fading to black. As the darkness enveloped me, the room grew cold, the sweet aroma of the garage returning to replace the acrid scent of the game's hellish world. I turned off the console and the TV, the silence echoing in my ears. The game had gotten under my skin, invading my thoughts and filling me with a mix of excitement and horror. But as much as I wanted to destroy it, I knew I couldn't. It had become a part of me, a challenge that I had to face. And so, with a shiver of anticipation, I made up my mind to return to Candyland Racers 2, to conquer the tracks I had yet to see, and to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within its glitchy depths.